Thank you. And we apologize to all of you that have been waiting for us. Our closed session ended up being just a bit longer than we might have anticipated, but we certainly appreciate your patience. So now we move to discussion items. And first up is our innovation report, and we're happy to have Debbie Brannon to bring that to us tonight.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the November Innovation Report. It is very early in the month, and we're jumping right on it. So the November Employee Digital Book Club is listening to the innovative team this month, unleashing creative potential for breakthrough results. So I hope you'll join me listening to this book and learn how to kickstart innovation in the workplace. Today's innovation report aligns with the county's transparent and accountable government strategic priority. Last month was October, so we knew it was Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This month is November, so we know it is the election day tomorrow. And for our innovation report, we did have Carol Souls here, but she had to jump off and go to a Board of Elections board meeting. So fortunately, we had a backup plan. We've got Todd Shanley here, who is our CIO, and he's going to tell us a little bit about our continuous improvement of our elections technology and processes.
Thanks, Debbie. So yeah, I did talk to Carol a little bit this afternoon, talking a little bit about how well Ballot on Demand and One Stop is going for her. One of the areas that she was able to get this year, or during the pandemic, they were funded with a Ballot on Demand, 2 Ballot on Demand devices that allowed her to reduce the amount of ballots that she had to purchase. As you probably are aware, that the state requires her to purchase 100% of the number of ballots that are would potentially be used during an election. This Ballot on Demand device allows her to print them, and she's used that all through One Stop. So that has really reduced some of the costs and things that have gone on, and that's really worked out well for her. The other item that they've improved this year is the express vote machines. They are the ADA device that she's using to do the marking of the ballots. You're probably familiar with her presentation she did earlier this year on the purchase of those devices, and she says that all of the folks that have been using them are very happy and ecstatic about it. Another project that has been important to the election process this year is we upgraded what was called the Unity software we've been using for the last 14 to 15 years to manage the election process and count the votes on election night. And that process was upgraded, and the IT staff worked closely with Carol. I'm very proud of the relationship that the IT department and the Board of Elections team have together. We work as a single team and communicate often to make sure that these things go off seamlessly. So, and then when you work having to work with the folks at the state, it's really it's amazing how well everyone works together to pull off these elections each year. So that the ability to have got that Unity upgrade done and have that without having additional expense, and having IT staff that was able to learn that from the ground up in this new year was a big deal. Some of the other ITS functions that we're doing this year is we're prepping the 90 plus laptops that are going out for Election Day tomorrow, tablets for the chief judges and the rovers. You may remember that Landon Patterson did a presentation for you probably a couple months back, or probably last year at this point, showing you the process of the application that we're using on Election Day to help the poll workers communicate with the election staff. So that we've continually improved that to make sure that the messaging and that we're getting those status updates. I know that sometimes there's some frustration on how long is it taking to get those last few polls in, and we're using that application to know when someone's left the election site and what's going on. So it's really helping us to know who needs help when, during the day and as they're closing up those poll sites. So it's really improved that process. things I'm really proud of is some of you may be aware that in my youth, I was a paratrooper, and they raise us to know that the very first thing you are is an infantry person first. And so we run our IT department in that very similar way. Everybody is a help desk person first, and they can always help with an IT function. So tomorrow morning during the election process, every site will have an IT person present before the polls open to make sure that the IT pieces are functioning as needed to get us started. So we're very happy and to help out with that process and to make sure that we have safe and secure elections. Sorry, notes are closing out on me. It's one of the other big upgrades that happened this year was the state moved their Seams database server to the cloud. While that process may not seem eventful, there's a lot of big pieces that happened with that, and they were able to do some much needed security upgrades. Using the term MFA or multi-factor authentication has been improved throughout the process. Well, that is a little bit more painful for the staff as they have to log into each application. We just know that those applications and that process is now secure and has that cybersecurity component involved. So we're very excited about that. And again, the state board came in this year and helped us do a wellness check on the whole process. But the part that I helped Carol with was a several-page audit of our processes, and we were able to take some really good points of improvement out of those meetings with the people that are coming down from the State Board of Elections. So the ability for the three teams to work together to pull this off has been quite beneficial for the county. And we're very excited about getting things going tomorrow. That's all I had, Debbie.
Okay, thank you, Todd. I appreciate you filling in for Carol. And unless there's any questions, I guess I will just say too, though, although this is just a small election, but we treat it just like it's a presidential election. And it also gives us opportunity to continuously improve and test our processes to make sure that we're ready for the next big election. I appreciate your time, and thank you, Todd, for providing that report for us.
Thank you both. I will ask a question of either or both of you. We hear so much discussion nowadays about election integrity and potential issues, and when folks approach me, they say, well, what about Cabarrus County? And I continuously say that I am aware of no problems, no issues, but you guys are much more involved and see that on a first-hand basis. Are there any areas that we need to improve upon, or any areas of concern, or just kind of like to hear your general comments on what kind of a position you think we're in Cabarrus County?
I think we're in an excellent position due to the fact that we do work together, and we're always improving the process. We don't assume that where we are yesterday is good enough. So I think that ability to challenge each other and push the envelope to make sure that we can do one more thing to secure it. I think the biggest thing that you hear, especially as you read how different jurisdictions, even in North Carolina, manage their elections, we don't attach any of the computers that are used during election day to the internet. So we don't transfer election results. While it may be a little bit more time consuming, and that's why in those election nights there's maybe a little bit of a delay with those last couple of precincts coming in. But the fact that we're not doing that, and there's we have that extra bit of, I guess, uncertainty removed from the process without having the internet involved, and that question of, well, was this computer hacked in some way and altered during the day? I mean, I would never say the only secure computer is the one that's turned off and put in a box. So there's always those opportunities, but the way that we work together to mitigate those issues and work through that process, Carol is very attuned to that and listens to that, and that goes back even to when Linda Grist was the chair, the elections director, working through those processes and identifying them very early to make sure that we don't get too fancy to move too fast and do things that are going to, just draw questions about the integrity of the election, I think is the biggest part. So as soon as there's the question of an issue, I think that the integrity is starting to be questioned. So I think that's our goal every day. But continuing to target those and the fact that we work so close together to identify those issues. The MFA by itself is a big deal. So multi-factor authentication, everybody's being forced to do that on almost everything you're doing anymore. While it's a pain to have somebody text you before you are able to log in, well, at least we know there's a better chance that it's the right person logging into those systems.
And I will.
The part that you mentioned
I would say that our team also has always gone the most restrictive route, and that we may have implemented security before some of the other jurisdictions in North Carolina did. Our interpretation's always been above and beyond what was required. So we were doing some MFA before it was required this year. So I'm proud of the team for taking that seriously and going above and beyond.
Yeah, and so I guess the other question that maybe people might have when you mentioned about the state going to putting part of it on the cloud, that is for the results after they've already been tabulated locally. That's not a part of the process, right?
Correct. That piece is more that database is the registration database more than it is the election process. So the election software and the election tally machines are all controlled locally, and then yes, we upload those and we do batches. So I work election night with Carol and her team for the last 10-15 years. So that process, we do it in several batches and then take them over to a computer that's connected to the internet, and don't reuse the flash drive. So don't stick the straw in one cup and bring it back and stick it in this other cup and contaminate it. So we're using one flash drive at a time to upload, to this computer that's connected to the internet to make sure that we're doing that and getting those results uploaded. But yes, the SEAM system, the state election information management system, is that piece of it is more the registration side. So it holds the poll books, the list of people who are registered to vote.
Thank you. Commissioners, anyone else have a question or a comment? Okay, well, we appreciate you being with us tonight. So we will move now to item 4.2. Cabarrus County Recovery Grants, Small Business Support Program update, and we're happy to have Deputy County Manager Rodney Harris to bring that report.
Good evening. I'm going to start us out, and then Kasha's going to, I think, walk through a brief presentation on some outreach approaches. So we wanted to start with the Small Business Grant Program and update you on the status, and to hopefully walk through why we're recommending opening it back up for another 3-week period to get more applications in. And so I thought it would be helpful to start with the process so that the board understands and the public understands the process that these small businesses have to go through in order to qualify. And so the first step is the application itself, which can be done online or via mail, a paper application that they can mail in. And when they fill out that application, in addition to their business name and some other key details, they're providing us their tax documents. And so that could be in the form of their Schedule C, if they're a sole proprietorship, or it could be, if they're a corporation, their 1120S. And once they provide those tax documents, we're able to look at them and determine if as a company they had a loss from 2019 to 2020. And so based on the interim, we have to be able to show that they were negatively impacted. And so once we calculate that business loss, they can move to the next step in the process. And that's basically three separate processes that they have to do. The first is required by the federal government, which is they have to have a SAM registration. And so that is a registration process that they do via sam.gov, and it takes about 30 minutes to get an account. Once that happens, they have to wait about 10 to 12 days before their account is activated, and that is what allows them to receive federal assistance. The second step is a county process, and that is to get registered to do business with the county. And so they get an invitation to register with PaymentWorks, and they complete that application process. And then we're able to establish them as a vendor with the county. And then also we have fraud protection that comes with that. And then the last step is they have to provide expense documentation. And so in the case of a business that's getting a $10,000 award, they would give us documentation to support $10,000 of expenses that they've already incurred. And so for most of them, they provide us a couple of payrolls, and that is sufficient to show that they had eligible business expenses. Once all of that is complete, we can move them into the payment process. And so what you can see and what I wanted to demonstrate is that these businesses are having to jump through multiple hoops in order to get to the end. And we understand that, and we are working with them to make it as efficient as possible. But unfortunately, because this is federal money, there are a lot of federal strings that are attached to it. So that is the process. And so I wanted to give you a sense of where we are in the process with the applications received so far. So in the first round of applications, we received 204 legitimate applications from small businesses. Of those, we have 43 that are basically ready for payment. And so that is the final stage of review. They've completed all of those steps that I just mentioned. We have another 58 that have completed all of the steps, but we are waiting on the federal government to activate them as a vendor. And so that could be another 7 to 10 days, depending on when they got that registration in. There are another basically 100 or so that are either ineligible, which is about half of that 100, or they have not provided enough documentation at this point. So we need additional tax documents to confirm their business loss, and we have not received those yet. And so that's sort of where we are in terms of status with the 204 that have submitted so far. But we also know that there is a larger universe of small businesses out there in the community, and we want to make sure we leave no stone unturned in trying to reach them. And so Kasha is going to talk a little bit about what our strategy is going to be over these next 3 weeks as we try to reach more of these small businesses that have a need. And so I will turn it over to her.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for that introduction, Rodney, and for sharing information on this program. The Small Business Recovery Program rolled out in late September, and I'm going to share some of the initiatives we had in phase 1 and some things we can look to in phase 2. Share my screen. So we had 3 different ways that we typically communicate with our residents. The first is through media relations. The second is through partnership connections. And then, of course, direct to consumer. And for phase 1 of the outreach, with our partner connections, we reached out to the EDC, Rowan Cabarrus Community College's Small Business Center, and Cabarrus Chamber and the cities as our primary partner organizations. Because of the nature of what we do, small businesses aren't necessarily a partnership list that we maintain and cultivate. We had a much better connection to the nonprofits in our area, and we're able to reach out, and you saw the benefits of that when those applications rolled in. So for this, we counted on our partners, and they came through in big ways. The Cabarrus EDC sent it out to their 450 plus subscribers. They had another newsletter that it went out to with 900 contacts. And of course, they presented it through their social media and their entrepreneurship council with over 20 members that have connections that go well beyond the EDC's reach. And the Rowan Cabarrus Community College Small Business Center also shared it with 1,300 people that they communicate regularly with, and repeated those messages on an ongoing basis. Of course, the chamber sent it to their members and the cities put it out via social media and all the other channels. They've been great supporters of all of our initiatives, and I thank them very much. For this particular initiative, I really wanted to connect with organizations within the community. So we reached out to the NAACP, El Puente Hispano, which received in Spanish, the Kannapolis African American Museum and Cultural Center, our faith community partners, and our youth commission, because we heard that youth commissioners speak earlier this year about rental assistance and wanted to make sure they were connected to this and other initiatives that we put out as a communications department. Beyond that, we have our media relations, and as you can see, we got great media attention on this when it first went out. Had interviews every day. We had different interviews with different media outlets, and we're very appreciative of that. So this was one of those things that took off in that regard, which we don't typically get, unfortunately, but we're very glad to receive in this situation. Beyond that, our direct to consumer, you can guess, would be our social media. That would be distributing flyers to people as we receive calls and requests for information. And of course, our YouTube channel, Cabarrus County Television, all the ways that we send messages out to the community. So we want to make sure you understand what we would do differently in phase 2. There was one opportunity that we weren't able to expand on, and that is direct to business. We worked with the tax office to identify companies that have $2 million or less in assets. As a baseline, we could always narrow that list. We came up with 3,200 businesses that have less than $2 million in assets and are located within Cabarrus County, have mailing addresses within the county. So that would be my first recommendation for direct to business rather than direct to the general public, direct to business. Send them a letter going over the things Rodney just mentioned and sharing links to all the presentations as well, making sure they know what's happening. Let's see here. As I mentioned, reaching out to the 3,000 local businesses with a letter direct to them from the county. Add live events. These would be training events or informational sessions that are in person and or virtual over the coming weeks. Extending our partnership network. We mentioned Cabarrus County partnerships, but now we're looking at going beyond Cabarrus County. So working with organizations that may be out of Charlotte that serve a more targeted demographic and would have reaches in Cabarrus. So those would hopefully catch some of the people that we may have missed that are part of those organizations. Also working with businesses that participate in local festivals. We have Jiggy with the Piggy. Harrisburg has several small festivals that they hold. Those are organizations that I think are probably impacted very much by COVID, especially if those events didn't happen over the course of the year. They may have had a negative impact on their business. Working with Harrisburg Business Network and other organizations that have ties to the community. And of course, targeting historically marginalized populations, going back to the groups that we've worked with before and asking, what can we do better? How can we really form a partnership, not only for this. If you work with our organization, if you work with our department, you know that it's not about a one-time contact. We really want to form relationships with people so that we can call back on them when opportunities exist. And so they can call on us. Message focus, we want to repeat the message with consistency. They say you have to share a message 7 times before it resonates, or you have to hear a message 7 times before it resonates. So, you know, at the pace we're moving right now, it's hard to get the message repetition because we have so many messages at one time. That's something we always strive to do, and that's why we try to hit it from different angles. And of course, clearly state the qualifications and proof of need. All those things that Rodney just mentioned to help people understand if they don't qualify, which would be unfortunate, but it would help the process and make sure that they know what they're getting into and how we can facilitate their way through it. So with that, I will take any questions you have about this process and any suggestions you have for connecting with networks that may not have been mentioned.
And just real quick, Kasha, I did want to share one piece of information that I found very interesting about these pool of applicants And so far we have a additional legal disclosure that we need them to sign before we can send the money out the door. And so far 128 of these have completed that process. And what was striking about that is about 40% of those businesses were minority owned. And at a state level, it's usually about 13%. And then 40% roughly were female owned, which at a national level is usually around 20%. And so we really have done, at least in this first round, a pretty good job of reaching those marginalized populations based on the pool that we got. And I'm optimistic with these approaches that Kasha has talked about, we can reach even more in the next 3 weeks.
Great. Thank you very much for that excellent report. And I certainly agree with your reopening those applications. One question that I had was, if every applicant that is in the process that you detailed successfully complete all those tasks, how much money will we have distributed, if the very maximum amount with these current applicants?
So we would be roughly at about 1.3 million with this current set of applicants. And we had allocated $5 million, up to $5 million for this purpose.
And how long did that application process stay open on the first round?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So we're doubling that. So hopefully our goal is to get all of these funds in the hands of people that need them. So I thank you, Kasha, for that report. I thought that was excellent. It sounds like you folks did a very comprehensive job of covering the bases and have even come up with some additional things. So, commissioners, do you have questions for Rodney or Kasha?
Just one. Rodney, of the 43 that have completed everything and they're in for the payment process, which is the final process, when do you anticipate those funds to start going out?
So the final review should happen this week. And so I would anticipate either next week or the following week, the payments will go out.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. I was having some audio issues. Did you say when you're reopening those and when the deadline is for those applications to come in?
So reopen this evening and it will be open through Friday, November 19th at 5 p.m. It'll be my birthday present.
Okay, additional questions. And I'm assuming that the information that Kasha and her team will be pushing out will very clearly define that November deadline as well. So I think this is a great opportunity for folks that need it. Okay, if there are no other questions, we will move now to item 4.3 from the annual report from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And sorry, they've been patiently waiting throughout the meeting. And I saw Donna Carpenter earlier. Now I'm seeing John Mills and Michael. So whoever wants to go first, take it away.
That would be me. Thank you. We are very patient people. No, seriously, we appreciate your time this evening. You normally see us at least once a year to talk about the budget. So this is kind of a first for all of us to be appearing before you to talk about an annual report. Like everyone else, last year caused us to pause and rethink our core pillars, which are business development, marketing, partnership, and finance and operations. You know, COVID threw a lot of challenges our way, and we needed to kind of regroup and rethink how we, the CVB, did business within our pillars that we have. And this annual report that we have sent you, we hope you all have a copy of it because we're going to kind of go through it really quick, is a snapshot of what we did to ensure the hospitality industry remained relevant and as successful as we could possibly do that. Before we get started, I want to thank our past and present members for their dedication to the continued health and growth of the hospitality industry here in County. If you'd like to learn a little more about each of our board members, I, over the past year, conducted interviews, virtual interviews with each of them via Zoom. And those videos are posted on where they live, actually on our business site, which is cabcocvb.com, who we are, and CVB board members. So I encourage you to go on there and check out those interviews that we have with our board members. There's some serious stuff in there. There's some funny stuff in there, and things about our board members that no one really ever knew. So, and a couple of you all are on my board. So it was fun. It was a fun project that we did, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I did. I'm going to turn this over. We have a quick little flip book, I think, for you all to look at as we go through this. I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Vice President, John Mills.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Lauren, did you have the link that you could pull, or I can do it from my end?
And you can go ahead and flip.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and flip some pages here. You can go to the next slide. And one more. All right, so we're kind of taking a look back. So, and things have obviously have improved since we've ended our fiscal year June 30. But this report is based on a June 30 process. So we definitely wanted to take a look back and give you some information. So this chart just takes a look at how the hotels performed in fiscal year for the last 2-3 years. So you can see, we were running near 68% in fiscal 2019, and we ran around 56% in 2021. It was not only in amount of people that are coming and the amount of hotels that were being consumed, but it was an average daily rate. As you can see, the average daily rate dropped $20 during this time frame. Of course, that had an impact on occupancy tax collection, since that's a percentage of the total revenue collected. So you can see we were, FY19 at the bottom there, bottom right, we were near almost $6 million as we finished fiscal 19, and we finished about $3.7 million when we finished fiscal 21. So obviously it took a big hit for us from a revenue standpoint. The next slide. We have kind of an impact, just an overall kind of a pictorial graph here that talks a little bit about some of the statistics related to COVID. So that resulted in $32 million lost in hotel revenue alone. Of course, the occupancy tax collection since COVID started for us during that time period was about 65% that was down. And of course, the hardest thing for us was the tough decisions we had to make because when you go from near 6 million to around 3.7, there was some hard decisions to make with staff. So we pretty much cut our staff in half from 21 to 10. We have brought a couple people back from that time frame. But again, we were able to move forward, and I can tell you financially, we're very healthy. We were able to make the cuts to offset the revenue loss that we had throughout the year. So we ended up where we needed to be from the revenues that we received. On the next slide, one of the things that the state does for us is they, yes, ma'am.
Can you go back a slide and talk about the group business that's at the bottom of that?
Yeah, so
just for a second. Thank you.
And I know Donna's going to have some more group stuff she's going to get into here in a little bit, but we wanted to talk a little bit about, one of the things as this business has come back, it's been more on the leisure side of our business. The business travel and the group travel with meetings and conventions hasn't quite recovered. So as the recovery has come on quite nicely in the last few months, it's amazing to think there's still a couple of segments that have not quite come back to us and that leisure's there. So group's been the most affected at the bottom of the screen. You can see, there was some business that we worked to try to move and reschedule, and then some businesses they thought they would be able to go from spring of 20 to spring of 21 to fall of 21, and it keeps getting moved, and some of that business was ultimately lost. And then you can see that the room night loss at the bottom just from the piece of business that we work, not the businesses that the convention center and the other hotels work as well. So the next slide. So the state puts together, in partnership with U.S. Travel, puts together tourism spending stats for us. And so on a 2019 level calendar year, tourism spending, you can see in Cabarrus County, and this is on a calendar basis, was near $516 million. And in 2020, that number dropped to $288 million. From a ranking perspective, Cabarrus County typically sits around 12th in tourism spending out of North Carolina's 100 counties. We fell back to 16th. We think that's short-lived. We think we'll be back to those numbers here in this next year. And you had destinations on the coast and the mountains we might have talked about previously. They did well. In some cases, there were mountain areas that had record years, even during COVID, because people sought out those types of locations. So the urban areas really struggled. The rural, again, the coastal mountain areas did very, very well. But we want to continue to point out on the left side of the screen, you can see that there's still a tax savings that's represented. And by that visitor coming into our destination, just from 2020 and what it was, we were able to save $115 per resident as a tax savings. And that's what would the taxes that are generated by the visitor each and every year. So if you take that down to an individual resident in Cabarrus County, that's the savings that you would recognize. And on the next slide, that kind of breaks it a little bit more for you. So you can take the spend that we have, but it also gets into what does it look like in payroll, just from the spending that's supported with the payroll within side of Cabarrus County. In taxes alone, the top middle there, it created almost $11 million in local taxes, just visitor spending. On the statewide, that's almost $14.4 million. And again, these are just visitors to Cabarrus County. And at the bottom, I like that. In an average day of 2020, you can see it says in local tax revenues, we're creating $29,000 a day in local taxes is what the visitors generating for us. So while FY21 was a very, very difficult year for us, we were very much hopeful about what we saw as we got into like late April, May, and June, and what we've seen throughout this year. But as I said to start, there was some segments that we're still waiting to come back, and hopefully those will come back soon. So I will turn it over to Mr. Michael Bonoski, who is our Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and he will talk about some of our marketing efforts during this time.
Thanks, John. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening, and just want to highlight a couple of different programs that we were able to run over the course of a very challenging year. So, as you know, the marketing team here manages a very comprehensive marketing, advertising, and communications and media plan, essentially to engage potential visitors, help us tell our story, build and create awareness, and inspire overnight travel. Well, as we started, our traditional campaign strategy abruptly transitioned into kind of managing the unexpected and shifting our message. If we can go to the next slide, please. We had to adapt in our messaging, and basically looking at driving visitation, focusing ultimately on our priorities of, the well-being of Cabarrus County, the residents, the community, and our visitors. I went one slide too early. I'm sorry. If we can go back, I'm sorry. So if you look at a high level number, our initiatives are always called to action, driving traffic to our website. And these are some pretty significant numbers when you look at traffic reaching over 700,000. Those numbers are actually up, but when you take a look at people not traveling, those folks are starving for content. They're starving for information. So from a marketing perspective, if there were adjectives that described us, it was we were very agile. We were very flexible and able to deliver storytelling that would entice potential visitors to Cabarrus County. You look at our social reach, 2.1 million, and you look at our following, we've got some pretty significant numbers across all our social channels. And then when you add in the overall PR aspect of it, we're generating 117 headlines with over 20 million in circulation. So those are significant numbers, and we have those benchmarked for what we were looking at. So when we go forward, next slide, please. This is an initial campaign. It was a 12-week campaign as things began opening up to go Cabarrus, get outside. And this campaign in itself, generated 97 million impressions, with 536,000 clicks with a click-through rate of 0.55. That's important because our typical industry standard average is 0.35, and a click-through rate is when someone sees our messaging, someone sees a display ad, they click through that, which eventually takes them to our website. When you look at the previous slide, that's generating the traffic and the website hits. Again, looking at raising brand awareness, and then you take a look at some of the creative and some of the families and targets, adults ages 25 through 54, interest in travel, outdoor activities, kayaking, mountain biking. We've got new mountain biking trails here. So, we're going to focus on that going forward. And then you look at the geography, we're really taking the state's lead, knowing that group business and meetings and corporate were slow, taking the state's lead in terms of looking at a drive market to help us with visitation. Next slide, please. So from a partnership standpoint, email communication was essential. When you take a look at how we're communicating with partners, what we're communicating with partners, our staff was consistently and constantly talking to our partners because we had hours changing, we had services changing, and then collectively from a marketing standpoint on our website, we're making those changes to services provided, hours again for each listings, and there are thousands of listings on our website. You take a look at partner newsletters, emails, seminars via Zoom. Everybody knows what Zoom is because we spent a lot of time on Zoom. So, Zoom meetings, seminars to help educate our partners on what information is available, and then, things of that nature. Go to our next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So one of the metrics is this is walk-in traffic to our visitor center, and the numbers are very telling. And you look at April, May, June of 2019-2020, 0. Our visitor center was closed, and those numbers are very telling when you take a look at 2019 versus 2019-2020 at 2337 versus 1032. There were 5 months of no visitors visiting our traffic. But again, while we weren't able to attract those people or talk to those people one-on-one in person, we were attracting them, talking to them via digital, social, web, things of that nature. Next slide, please. I think I turn it back to Donna.
Yes, you do. Okay, thanks, Michael and John. This is just a snapshot, and I know the reason I interrupted John a minute ago was because there were comparisons on that page for our group business from years past. So you could really see what has happened in the group industry portion of what we do. And these next couple slides kind of show you what we as a staff did. And I will tell you that, the biggest thing our sales team could do, and I say team, it went down to 2 people from 4 or 5 maybe, and was just reaching out and communicating with those meeting planners and offering assistance. How do we rebook your business? What do we need to do once we do rebook business? What's your event going to look like? Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be a dual virtual component? And that's kind of what we're seeing is that has kind of risen up out of COVID is, meetings and groups. And I mean, here we sit on a virtual platform. That is what a lot of these meeting planners have had to really switch to, is a combination of both in-person and a virtual component. So just making sure that we're holding their hands. We let them know we're here. What do we need to do? We also kind of had to shift focus on a sales side on how do we help our hotels, venues, and attractions get those canceled groups rebooked and put strategies in place to do so. Next slide, please. And just so when you add a virtual component to something, it actually has put a lot of burden back onto our hotels and meeting facilities, as you all very well know. that don't have that AV type equipment. They've had to invest in that after a very, very hard year with no revenue or very little revenue. So it has put some hindrance on our local hotels and places that host events. This is just another little recap of the group stats. You all can read and kind of look and see the different things. As John mentioned, leisure is back in full force, and group is not there yet. With the Delta variant, we were getting there. We were booking business and had some groups on the books. And as soon as the Delta variant hit, some of those larger groups started canceling. Now we are still seeing some group business as far as meeting groups, but our bigger group business has been amateur sports. So, and I'll talk about turf fields in just a few minutes. But those sporting events and amateur youth sports have been kind of our saving grace. So, next slide. This is some of the things that also the sales department did. We did host 3 familiarization events, 2 race FAMs and 1 religious FAM. I think one of these was virtual, but the other 2 were in person. And, working with third-party association management companies, staying on their radar that we are a safe place to host a meeting and that we are following safety protocols and we can make their meeting, they can pull their meeting off safely here in Cabarrus County. And just being a leader in the group meeting industry. And there's a couple testimonials on the side here. We have a lot of those testimonials. These are just 2. And we do feedback. We appreciate the feedback and send out surveys to any of those groups that host a meeting here to ask them about their experience, not just with the CVB, but within the destination and what can we do better next time. So, and we rank like at a 4.6 or something, 4.3, somewhere in there, out of 5. So that's very good for us, and we're super proud of that number. Next slide, and I'm going to turn it back over to Michael again. We're playing ping pong.
Thank you, Donna. I just want to talk a little bit about, there's a lot of crossover. So we have marketing with community engagement and local advocacy. So this program, Count on Me NC, you may have heard the jingles at the gas stations. You've seen the billboards, you've seen the digital TV campaigns. Really was a public health initiative, that empowered visitors, guests, and businesses to help keep everyone safe from COVID-19. We encouraged our partners to take the Count on Me NC pledge. And through the Visit NC Count on Me website, our partners would then go through training modules, and then they would become Count on Me NC certified. So collectively, as a whole, our partners would then receive a Count on Me NC badge on our website for their listing. And as part of that, in addition to the organic aspect of that, was also a co-op program with the state that we didn't come out of pocket, but we were granted a $100,000 credit to help with this initiative. So we could take some of their creative, match it with our creative, and kind of help tell the story of what we were trying to do as a destination to make sure that we are a healthy, safe destination to encourage visitors to visit. Again, not all businesses were closed down, so we were looking out for restaurants, hotels, attractions, things of that nature that were still open to encourage that health and safetyness of the destination. So, when you look at the overall campaign, again, we're generating over 18 million impressions across all our digital channels from Instagram, YouTube, print, social, things of that nature. And that was about an 8-week program. Next slide, please. And the last marketing piece that I'm going to talk about was a local organic program. I'm sure you've heard of it, Cabarrus Burger Madness. It was centered around the same time frame of March Madness to kind of create a local, fun, energetic competition among local restaurants, as they created their best one-off favorite burger. These were unique menu items. And to tell a real quick story, the winner actually ended up selling an incremental 300 more burgers than they would have in the past. There was a voting mechanism. We were driving people from social media to our website, and for those people to vote. And I'm extremely happy about this program. It was an organic program. It was created internally. We drove traffic. We drove business to local restaurants. Very happy with the overall program. And I know that we're going to be challenged with creating something similar again this year. So I'm excited for that. We may have to create two. That's how great it was of a program. But all in all, very excited about the program. And I can't see it listed on here, but Johnny Rogers local restaurant was the winner of Cabarrus Burger Madness.
And I jump in to say that, our purpose in creating this is not something we would normally do, but sitting down and saying, what can we do to help our local restaurants, that it doesn't matter what happens, whether they're open for inside dining or takeout. What can we do to make their cash registers ring? And so we threw this on a wall and it stuck, and we said, okay, let's just do it. We called some of our chefs and restaurant owners and asked them, how can we do this without it being an inconvenience to you? And so they really set the tone for this and became engaged, and it was just a tremendous success. I know a lot of people probably gained a lot of weight on Steve Steinbacher. I know went around, I think he had every one of those burgers. Anyway, it was a great program, and it'll be back. So it's a good challenge for you all next time. Get out there and eat some of those burgers. Okay, next slide, and our very last slide. So you all recognize this. This is actually part of the printed piece that we created, the collateral for the turf field project that we did in partnership with you all and the school system. And I am happy to announce that over this past year, we had a total number of rooms blocked were 3,325, and total attendees for all the events that happened were 8,750. We have one more event left before the end of this year. And that is Pop Warner. That will be at Cox Mill High School and J.M. Robinson. That's football and cheerleading. But all of these rooms and attendees were generated from this project. So I can't say thank you enough to you all for agreeing to partner with us and make this happen. I do know that I've been to some of the football games at the high schools, and those student athletes also, as the perk of it was, they love playing on these fields, and they're so proud of it. And so I just can't tell you how appreciative we are for you all to have stepped up and helped us to make this happen. So thank you for that. With that, I think that is our last slide. I encourage you to go back and read some of the information in the annual report. It's the first time we've ever done an annual report, and really thought this year of all years, we needed to talk about what happened last year. And we will be doing this going forward every year so that you all will have some comparisons of how business is going in the hospitality industry every year. So, and we are all here for questions if anyone has anything.
Thank you, Donna and staff. That was definitely an excellent report. I think it certainly helps people to understand the challenges that have been out there, and the way that you folks have met those challenges, and especially appreciate your highlighting the artificial turf fields that we worked collaboratively on. That I think is a really true example of a win-win-win for everybody. Our schools win, our hotels and restaurants win, our retailers win. Everybody benefited from that project. So thank you so much for allowing us to work with you on that. Commissioners, are there other questions or comments for our folks from the CVB?
No, quick comment, a question to Lauren. I noticed that the slideshow is not in our agenda package. Lauren, can you send just that? I just wanted to be able to look through it, read through it again for a second time. So no rush. I just happened to notice as I was trying to pull it up that it's not attached, at least to the email that I have or the agenda that I have.
It's actually a flip book. So I think she probably has a link for it. So it's not like a PowerPoint presentation. It's a flip book that's actually on our business site. But I think Ms. Linker has the link for it to send to you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, just to reiterate what Chairman Morris said, you guys do a phenomenal job of bringing people here and having things to do and promoting local business, and that's been a big part of what this board has been doing for the last 6 years, I guess, or so. So it is it's fantastic to have the partnership that we have. I enjoy the social media posts that I see that you guys put out, and it's a pretty easy way for me to keep up with what's going on. So I'm appreciative of that, and just want to thank you here in public for all that you do for the people that live here, and what you do to encourage people to come, because some of those people come and they find out, hey, this is a great community, and they end up moving here. And that's a good thing, because we've got a lot of jobs that are getting created here as well. So we need people to keep coming.
Well, we're honored to do that job, and I can't wait to come back and share with you a marketing plan with all the fun stuff that we're doing for this year. So,
well, we look forward to that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you again for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
So we now move to item 4.4 from Emergency Management. We're happy to have Jacob Thompson and Steve Langer to talk with us about the Strategic Fire Study Update. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the opportunity this evening to kind of give you an update as to where we are on some of the recommendations from the Fire Services Strategic Study. We know you have a lot of other items to discuss, so we'll try to make it quick and brief for you. Laura's going to kind of help us out this evening and pull up our PowerPoint presentation for you. All righty. Again, just wanted to be able to kind of give you guys an update as to where we are with some of the recommendations. Lauren, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just kind of to recap, our study started back in early 2020, of course, right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Of course, technology quickly became our friend as we tried to explore ways to keep the project moving forward through Zoom, WebEx, and Team. We finally completed the study back in August, and our consultant provided a full overview to the board back in September. Again, the purpose of the study was to produce an overview looking at the current fire and rescue service delivery system in the unincorporated areas of the county and provide insight to priority needs and issues in the short term and long term. So the study provided some short term and long term recommendations, and those recommendations were sought as to how to best position the county to manage projected service delivery demands into the next few years, as well as ensure sustainable provisions of fire and rescue services for the county in the most efficient manner. So two of the recommendations out of the study that we really wanted to bring to your attention this evening or recommendations to help improve the service in the county. And these two recommendations will require, some input and guidance from the board as we move forward with trying to move these recommendations here in the future. We'll go to the next slide. Next slide, Lauren.
I did. I think it's just trying to catch up. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So we just got a little lag. All righty. So the first recommendation was a long-term recommendation. So typically 3 to 5 years is what the study looked at for the long term. For Cabarrus County to move towards a more regional or unified fire protection service district. And kind of what that would kind of change how the fire service is funded in the county. Let's go ahead and just move to the next slide. So with a service district can be put in place where they're covering the whole unincorporated areas of the county, or it can be laid individually over like the fire tax district boundaries. Currently, our fire departments are funded using a rural fire protection district model. And as you can see from the slide, all of our fire districts are independent of each other. They all have various tax rates. You can see that we've got districts with tax rates as low as 7 cents up to the max of 15 cents and various rates in between there. So with this method, you end up with different levels of funding, taxing, and service for the citizens. You can move to the next slide. With our service district, the study kind of recommended this as an additional or an alternative funding mechanism for the fire service in Cabarrus County. And with a fire service district, it can kind of allow for more equalization of the overall tax burden across the individual districts. I think we're still trying to catch up.
I'm so sorry.
Move forward.
What slide do you see?
I see the one still with the fire districts evaluations.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on, but I have changed to the other slide.
Okay. Well, anyway, looking at the fire service district, counties across North Carolina have found that the service district model provides a more sustainable model for funding and provides funding to more equitably balanced service across the unincorporated areas of the county. The rural fire district model that we currently have can provide resources for areas with a tax base, but it doesn't really provide well for the more rural areas. Traditionally, our fire departments in both suburban and rural areas have relied on our volunteers, but with the number of people willing to volunteer now in the foreseeable future, more resources are going to be needed for staffing, and that need is going to impact all of the unincorporated areas of the county. Due to the increased cost in providing fire protection through decreased volunteerism and the dependency of the departments moving towards that paid staffing, as well as the increased cost of equipment, it's becoming kind of unfeasible for the more rural areas of the county to carry that cost burden individually. We can try to go ahead and move it to the next slide. So we kind of wanted to just, give you an overview of kind of where we're at now with the process. We started back in March of this year with a kickoff meeting with our fire departments, the chiefs from the departments, county management, and staff to kind of look at these recommendations. So we had our first meeting back then. I believe Steve Morris was actually able to attend that meeting in March. Out of that meeting, we developed a subcommittee made up of our fire chiefs to meet with various counties across the state that have implemented service districts and to see how they are best utilizing that method of funding. To date, we have been meeting each month with a different county. And up to this point, we have met with Cleveland County, Cumberland, Guilford, Iredell, Wake, and this past month, we met with Moore County. All of these subcommittee meetings have been recorded. So I believe Jacob has a single link that we could send to the commissioners if you guys had any interest in hearing those meetings, as well as Jacob working on a Cliff Notes version of those meetings that we can provide to the board. But again, soon we'll be having another meeting with the subcommittee to kind of take all this information that we have obtained from all the various counties and how they have utilized the service district and kind of start pulling some recommendations from the chiefs here locally, and then in the future bring that information as well as recommendations from staff back to the board as we try to move the recommendations forward. So moving to the next slide, we're going to move into recommendation number 2, and I'm going to turn it over to Jacob at this time. And Jacob's going to kind of cover the study's recommendation related to our current fire districts and looking at closest unit response.
Hey everybody, thank y'all for letting us come on this evening and give you all a little bit of information. So again, recommendation number 2 was evaluate the current fire districts for closest unit response. And just to make it simple as that can be, that's exactly what it is. It's just looking at making sure that the closest unit appropriate to respond to the emergency is responding. And currently, and Ms. Thorne, you can go ahead and switch to the next slide. Currently, the fire district that a resident lives in may not necessarily coincide with the fire station that the residents lives closest to. May not be the actual fire department or fire engine or what have you that may be responding to that particular emergency. Doesn't really affect some of your bigger incidents such as fires, but when it comes down to medical calls and traffic accidents and some of those single company responses, it does affect that. The fire study saw an opportunity to improve the allocation of resources, and one of the things we really want to look at here is efficiency and making sure that we're doing the best that we can with taxpayer dollars, and looking at really the strategic placement of stations. Again, deployment for ISO, so as the departments are graded for their insurance gradings, and that being reflective on residents' tax or insurance rates for their homeowners insurance and things of that nature. This also want to make sure that that closest unit is responding, as that is going to reflect on those insurance grades. One of the biggest things that's really kind of put us behind the 8 ball on this, and probably why it has evolved and come up in the fire study, was it's just growth. That's one of the biggest things is in Cabarrus County, growth is really happening. Our municipalities are growing. Charlotte's continuing to grow out towards this direction. And so with that, the municipalities have been forced to add additional stations. And over the last couple of years, those moves have not been accounted for when it comes to making sure that the closest unit is responding to those emergencies. So, Lauren, if we could go ahead and move to the next slide. So using the data that was provided during the fire study, as well as assistance from our local GIS personnel, each district, we're kind of looking at each individual district. In the next slide, you're going to see a map that's kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. But with this, we're looking at each individual district. So kind of this is the process. We'll meet with each fire district to look at those individual lines. There may be some moves that are not practical due to what the computer is generating as being closest response versus reality. So we'll meet with each one of those fire districts individually to look at each of those moves to make sure what we are looking at is feasible. After any modifications are made, a final map will be produced and sent to North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal. So the State Fire Marshal's office will review it and make sure it doesn't have any kind of major issues that will affect the ISO grades and things of that nature for our fire departments. And then if approved by OSFM, fire services staff, emergency management staff will be coming with county management back to the board to set a public hearing to give the community members an opportunity to voice their opinion on the moves. And then again, final approval will be voted on by the commissioners. One thing to note here that I did want to touch base on is that the changes would not become effective until the first day of July. So following that standard fiscal year time frame. So any changes that would be made during the middle of the fiscal year, that would not change until July. So again, going to this next slide, you'll see a map here. This is one example of a map that that GIS has provided us. This is not an exact map, but basically what we're doing at this point is GIS is producing the maps, and it kind of gets us in the ballpark. It gets us in the right direction. And then again, we're sitting down with each of the fire departments and really looking at the areas. This map that's on here, you can see the red areas would be areas that are stood to be lost, and then green would be areas that stand to be gained by that particular district. But any green areas, again, will be coming from another district. And what you see here is you're really centering the districts around the fire stations. And that's really what we're getting at, is just making sure that those stations are really the closest that they can be to respond to those emergencies. So again, just the overall process, reviewing all district maps may take several months and several mini meetings. One district area that we identified during the process and that was specifically cited in the fire study was the area between Flow Store, Harrisburg, and Midland. So I wrote down the number here. Flow Store had approximately 1,040 acres annexed out of their district in that particular area. With the growth of Harrisburg and Midland in that area, they continue to kind of grow in, and we'll kind of discuss some of this on the next slide too. But that's why you see so much red in that area. And Lauren, if you go ahead and switch, and we'll kind of dive into some of the reasons why we want to address this area now. So amongst all the districts that were shown to need to be adjusted throughout the county, which every single district had some kind of a move that needed to be made, one of the largest impacts that was shown by the data was this area that was shown on that map on the previous slide. So another particular thing that's really facing us right now is Flow Store is proposing to build a second fire station to cover some areas that could be achieved utilizing current fire stations, both Harrisburg and Midland in place. There is some areas in that particular area that could be affected that are class 6 areas or greater than 5 miles, less than 6, which will be making them a class 9, which affects their insurance ratings and amounts that they were paying significantly. That could be solved just by moving a district line versus placing another fire station in service to do that. And so we feel like making this move would help, again, with that efficiency and making sure we're using taxpayer dollars the best that we can. Again, continued growth and annexation in the affected area. Both Harrisburg and Midland growing, again, with those annexation numbers. And then, of course, in that area, too, you have annexation agreements both between the town of Harrisburg and the town of Midland, including future land use. So, again, and Lauren, if you go and switch to the last slide, and I'll kind of cover this last point. With that, currently, with all the annexations that have taken place, both towns, of course, town of Harrisburg has their own department. Town of Midland does not, but they do have an exclusivity agreement with Midland Volunteer Fire Department. And so as those areas are annexed in that area, each of those parcels, the town of Midland exclusively is going to contract with Midland Fire Department. And so for some consistency and things of that nature, we also want to look at that as it reflects into the decision making on what we do when it comes to district boundaries. You see the map that is on the slide there. You see Harrisburg, Flow Store, and Midland, and then you can see the dark blue line there would be a proposed district, where the magenta shade line there is the current district. So you see a whole lot of change there that takes place that, again, being the closest units that we can get there the quickest, being the best that we can for the citizens while being the most efficient with the taxpayer dollars. So that kind of covers that recommendation. I know it's kind of complicated on the front end. There's a lot of good material. If you just do a quick Google search, the School of Government has a ton of information on both of these subjects, both the service district and the annexation, or not the annexation, but the fire service redistricting and those good things. Just if you do a quick Google search, or if you like it, you reach out and we can get you those articles. So ton of information out there. And Steve, I don't know if anybody has any questions or has any comments. Both of us would be more glad to answer or give you any information we can.
Thank you very much, Jacob and Steve. And it certainly was, I'm glad that I had an opportunity to attend that kickoff meeting, because I think all of the volunteer departments and others were throughout the county were represented at that meeting. It was pretty good attendance there, and they did a very comprehensive job of explaining many of the things that you've talked about tonight and talking about the process. And so hopefully I think that instilled a lot of confidence in all of those people involved. Commissioners, do you have questions or comments?
I had to unmute. I do have a question that I wanted to either Steve or Jacob, either one. I know that of providing a quicker service in the event of a structure fire emergency, that's always one of your goals. I know that. And in accomplishing those goals, you help the homeowners with their ISO ratings. I understand all of that. But, you know, with Flow Store, but just where I live and not far from there. And, but them having a second fire department, if it's something that they feel like is necessary, that's fine. But what about districts like Northeast, you know, where they have, you know, obviously a vast area to cover, and how will a fire service district help them, or will it?
Well, that's a good question, and Jacob can jump in anytime. But the one thing that would help them with the service district is through the funding. As I was pointing out, you have all these various fire districts with a fire tax district that's independent, and like Northeast, they are not a wealthy department. Their value of their district is so low that you raise a penny in their district, it generates roughly $14,000. And with a service district, what a lot of the counties have done is overlaid that service district across the whole county as one district. And that kind of helps equal out that cost sharing amongst the citizens, as well as working on that equitable service, because you're able to make sure that each department is funded appropriately. And that is one of the hindrance for Northeast. You know, it's hard for them to generate the funding that they need to increase their staffing or to purchase new equipment. And that's one thing that, you know, the reasons why the study kind of recommend that service district. And
Commissioner Shu, I will make one distinction here. The service district itself does not have a direct effect on the response district. So as the tax district would be, just say if we did as another county did and overlaid the entire unincorporated areas with that single service district, the response districts as they stand, or as they would be adjusted if we continue through that and you guys approve that, those response districts would stand individually of that service district when it comes to the taxes.
Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're just trying to equalize the funding, which in that case would benefit Northeast and other areas that would be like that. And it,
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't take away from any of the other fire departments, but the ones like Northeast, it would help them.
Yes, sir. If the commissioners chose to go with that route, which there's tons of options, and I encourage you to do research, and I'm more than happy to send you guys some of the meetings we've had, but there's tons of ways to do the service district funding. But if you do the county overlay, it would bring some districts up and it would bring some down to an equal number across the county, so that tax burden is equal amongst all the citizens, instead of putting all the burden to carry the increased cost on just Northeast Fire District alone. Right. They're having to carry the same deficit of personnel when it comes to tourism as every other department. They're just having to do it with a lesser tax base, which puts more of a burden on that taxpayer within Northeast District. So that's kind of one of the recommended goals of that service district.
Okay, thanks guys. I appreciate your input.
Yes, sir.
This is Mike. I think commissioners, as this progresses and we start, I know you're already starting to get a few calls from concerned citizens as well. So we'll be coming back to you periodically, or we can, if you want to meet one-on-one, or two of you come in and meet with staff, we can do that as well and get more detail here for you. But this is new for us, so I know you're going to have a lot of questions, as well as the public and even some of our volunteer firemen. So we want to make sure that as we progress, that we keep you updated throughout the process, so that you can answer any questions, ask any questions, and then also answer any questions before we go. And then Jacob and Stephen, I guess as we move toward redoing any district lines, I think prior to sending off to the state for review, let's make sure that we here locally all agree on those lines, or at least the board is aware of where we propose those lines to go.
Yep, most definitely. And again, to the board, like I said, we're working on some Word documents from the different meetings that we've had with the different counties, and we'll be more than happy to share that information with you, so you can kind of see what some other counties have done and how they utilized the service district and the funding of the service districts.
Other questions, commissioners? I had one question, and I direct this at Steve Langer, because I know he was involved in the process, but a number of years ago, it may have been around 2012, 2013, I'm not sure. We did a fire study before, and I recall spending a significant amount of time talking about items from that, and it primarily the things that stick in my mind were some standardization of types of equipment that some of the volunteer departments used, and as is true with most changes, some folks were pleased about it and others not as pleased. But can you give a post-mortem on that? How did that work out, and has it saved money, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so, there were recommendations that we were able to kind of move forward with from that study. That study did, touch heavily on looking at some joint purchasing and standardization of equipment, and we've been able to accomplish that in some aspects, especially like with SCBA across the county. It came at a good time when we had multiple departments that were looking at changing over or purchasing new SCBA which is their self-contained breathing apparatus. You see them on TV. They got their air pack on, is what that is for the viewing audience that may not know. But, I think we had just one department at that point in time that had already purchased a different brand prior to that. And so for the most part, we were able to get all the departments in the county on the same type of air pack, which is very beneficial whenever you have departments, especially in a volunteer setting, where you have volunteers responding to other districts to help the other department, and then pulling that equipment off that truck. They've been tested to it, fit tested, so they're utilizing that same equipment, which helps the department some of the OSHA requirements. Even the cities like City of Concord are using the MSA pack, which is what most of our departments went to. I think through looking in the future with the service district and that funding, I think that can definitely help us achieve some of the recommendations that come from the 2012 study and looking at some of that standardization of equipment. Because one of the things that we've noticed with other counties is with the service district, they also typically implement a little cushion there to kind of help departments with those capital purchases and purchase of equipment, which further help them gain that ability to standardize their equipment across their county.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, I'm sure we will be talking more about this as we go along, and we appreciate your efforts. And so now we'll move to item 4.5 from Infrastructure and Asset Management. We're happy to have Kyle Billifer with us for an update on the emergency equipment warehouse and ITS building project.
Thank you. We've gone through a bulk of some of our FFE meetings with the ITS group for the bulk of the furniture that will go inside of their areas. We've had several different discussions with users of Ramden Court, because as we begin the construction, there'll be an impact to that route, which bisects the parcel. And obviously there's a lot of users of that road. We've been going through the project on interior color selections, flooring selections, acoustic treatments. All the MEP has all been spec'd out for that. We've handled the rezoning of the 2 residential parcels that were in the front of that area. That obviously helps us with our buffer and our parking lot. And the board did have an agenda item on that several months ago, and you approved it. We've also gone through the interior lighting selections, and we'll be putting together a list of preferred alternates. So over the past year, I've been bringing preferred alternate lists to the board to comply with the general statute that asks us to have those in open meetings. So we go through those preferred alternates prior to me bidding them out as different alternates throughout the entire process of the project. It's easier if the board approves them by project. And quite frankly, most of them are pretty standardized from project to project. There's only a couple of them that are specialized. But one thing I wanted to show today, and if Lauren can cue it up, is we do have a video that is a rendering walkthrough video of the space. So it does go not as fast as it did originally, but still a little quick. So I will try to point out which areas you're visually in as you're walking through them. So Lauren, you can go ahead and hit play. So you're going through the front doors, and you are now in the Genius Bar. So this is the area where we would immediately assist folks that were coming in with computer issues or hardware issues. On your right here is the help desk area. You scroll down, that's a huddle conference room. And as you turn, that is a medium-sized conference room. As you continue to go down the hall, you will see on your left-hand side another huddle room. And this is the large open office area. That's where a bulk of the acoustic treatments are going to be needed because of the height of the ceiling. And obviously you can see the daylight coming in to this area. This is the break room. Notice it's completely open walled. And this is the developer open office suite. So the folks that actually do all the programming and write all that. Now you're looking at the different division supervisors' offices. Those are the only folks that'll actually have offices, are the supervisors and the managers. And you're walking back out the hallway into the Genius Bar. So it's one continuous loop. And obviously you can see the large amount of daylight that's coming in. I'm sure you know where ITS is located currently, so they've never had daylight at all. So I think they're very, very excited about this, about the amount of daylight coming in. And obviously we're just working through a lot of the acoustic treatments because of those tall ceilings and what that's gonna do. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Kyle, either you or Todd explain, or Debbie, what's a Genius Bar?
Oh, I will let Todd and Debbie explain that.
Hey, I can speak to that. So right now, commissioners, you've come to our offices. You have that little window there in the front where we try to service folks working on their computers or what have you. So we just have that small little ledge. So we've tried to design this so staff bring in devices and we need to work with them. This will be a place that we can spread out and help our customers in a obviously an Apple term of the Genius Bar, trying to utilize that space as a way to help our customers and do it in a not so tight spot.
Thank you.
Well, having recently visited that little window in the basement, that Genius Bar looks pretty nice, and I have a window popping up on my laptop right now saying something that I don't understand. So I'm not sure I'll be able to wait for that facility, but it really looks great.
Yes, sir. We look to bid it out in the beginning of the new year.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Kyle on that? Now, of course, that was the front portion of the building. The other emergency equipment warehouse, is that actually attached to that building, or?
Yes, it will be physically attached. It's easier for the code and the fire requirements and obviously the different utility costs coming in. There's some additional security and fireproofing that we need to do between the two spaces, because obviously you don't want everybody just be able to meander in and out of both of those areas, because both of them are secure for very different reasons. But yes, they will be connected. And that is the larger portion of the building, but obviously less finishes, less MEP, less muss and fuss for me. In fact, I have to have numerous design meetings for the ITS space because everything from the carpet to the acoustic treatment to the color on the wall is important. For the equipment warehouse, it was 2 virtual meetings, and are you okay with this, this electrical outlet being here? And it was like, yes, we're done. So it's been primarily the infrastructure and asset management group that have been working on that building.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners?
Just a comment, Kyle, those Genius rooms that you're talking about, you ought to have one of those with your name on it, just the Chief Genius.
I don't think I can. I don't think Todd will let me in that room. I don't think I passed the muster, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that.
Steve and I were talking the other day, and just want you to know how much we really value what you do. You've got a big plate, I tell you, a plate, and we appreciate all you're doing because you're helping to contribute to make these buildings of the future a reality. And I thank you so much for all you do, Kyle.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome.
Certainly echo that, and so sorry you missed the groundbreaking, although it was a little bit more unique than that, of the new EMS headquarters. I know you've invested a great deal of effort into that project, but that was also an exciting event for all of us and all of those folks that do a tremendous job. And just as a testament to your versatility, now that we've talked about designing those buildings, now you can tell us about decorating for Christmas. Since Halloween was last night, we move on to that. So we'll move now to item 4.6, talking about the Rotary Square Christmas tree.
Yes, sir. So obviously with everything that the city has going on with their different parking lots and all the construction, they weren't able to have their Christmas tree lighting in the Bicentennial parking lot that they normally have it. They approached the county and asked to have that tree lighting event in Rotary Square, which is right across the street from the courthouse. We couldn't accommodate their tree. We are able to accommodate our tree, which is a smaller tree than their tree. So we will be putting that up on November 5th. And when they came to us about that lighting, there's a lot of logistics that go into that. And in most years, we're very minimally involved. They do provide, we have agreements for the parking lot number 2 on Church Street. And this year we'll be adding Rotary Square into that legal agreement. But we're pretty minimal. I usually just sit on the computer and I actually turn our tree on after their tree goes on. This year, it's obviously going to be a little bit more in depth since it's on our property and it's all controlled by our building automation system, which controls all the lights and the outlets in that entire complex. So we'll actually have staff, one person there on site that night that'll be troubleshooting everything. And when they came to us about the tree, they also asked about decorating the Rotary Square area, wrapping lights around the columns, and then fencing off the open portions where, and you can kind of see in the aerial, the open portions where you can either get to Corbin or Union. They spoke with us about closing all of that off and creating a Christmas village. And they want to bring in several different structures where those blue boxes, probably parallelograms, are located, and dress those up with lights. We do have the electrical capacity for all of this, both the Building and Grounds Division of the City of Concord and the Infrastructure and Asset Management Department and myself. We all met on site and looked at it. We tested what we felt would be comparable, and we think we can accommodate everything they would like to. And that entire green area and center area of the Rotary Square would actually be fenced off. So it would almost be like walking up to the fence and just looking at a Christmas village versus you will not be able to go in and tour the village. Obviously, there's some safety concerns about tripping over all the cords that'll be on the ground. So we met with them. IAM has no issue with this. We can accommodate and work with them on this and troubleshoot any type of issue. And obviously, we'll program these different lights to come on each night as the dark comes till 2 a.m. and then they'll come down the beginning of January. And like I said, I'll make sure that all the legal agreements are in place. County Manager Downs wanted to make sure that the board was aware. I know the board has been aware of the Christmas tree, but I'm not sure that they were aware of Christmas Village. So on behalf of the City of Concord, I'm presenting this to make sure the board is comfortable with this.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. The bigger plan, this is Concord's project, and they're doing an excellent job of trying to juggle during some of these construction times. So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we would be accommodating them. Another opportunity for us to collaborate with the city and help out as we do each other at various times. But since we were going to completely shut this park off during this time, we want to make sure you guys knew that we were doing that. But once Concord opens up and shows their plans for what's going to take place throughout the entire downtown, I think everybody's going to be excited. But we just wanted to make sure this little piece here that we are helping with, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of it.
And just to kind of dovetail on what County Manager Downs said, there were no reservations for that. For Rotary Square at all, so I didn't have to cancel anything. I just blocked it. And in addition, the water feature has already been turned off because of the temperatures.
Well, thank you very much. I think that all of our municipalities now, maybe with one or two exceptions, do have annual tree lighting ceremonies, and it's been my pleasure to attend, I think, all of them. And it's truly one of the best events in the county. It's when you think about the different approaches, the different locations, it is very reminiscent of a Hallmark Christmas movie that you feel like you're walking through. So I'm certainly glad that they're able to utilize that space. Does anyone else have any questions or have any concerns at all about this? Okay, thank you very much. Then we will move now to discussion items for action. First up is 5.1, appointments to boards and committees. And all of you have a list of those in your agenda, and you have received those by email earlier. Does anyone have any questions or concerns that would prevent that from moving forward on our consent agenda for our regular meeting? Okay, I see no one indicating so. So we will move on to item 5.2, Cabarrus Thread Trail participation, and we are happy to have Deputy County Manager Jonathan Marshall with us to talk about that item.
Thank you. Some months ago, Chairman Morris, Mike Downs, Londa Strong, and I met with representatives of Catawba Lands Conservancy and the Carolina Thread Trail. And that did include some of our local board members. So I'd ask to join us tonight, but I think I know one of them had a conflict and I don't believe the other was able to make it, but Alex Rankin is on that board and Harris Morrison is also. But they were talking to us more about the thread trail to begin with from the regional basis, how it extends throughout the entire region, how much of the larger development of the thread trail is connecting to Cabarrus County. And then we started looking specifically at the Cabarrus County portions of it, with those concentrations along the Rocky River and Irish Buffalo Creek. The most recent example is, of course, that segment that Kannapolis has constructed along Irish Buffalo. There also is one thing that's unique about Cabarrus is we also have the Blue Way on the Rocky River that is part of the larger thread trail project. They moved into some of their fundraising goals, and they are undertaking some major fundraising goals to complete many more miles of the thread trail throughout the region. And we talked a lot about the economic impact of that, like parks and other amenities. There is an economic impact as people are attracted to those areas and into the areas to use those facilities. And then we got down to the specific fundraising goal for Cabarrus County related to a signage project, and they are doing major signage revisions throughout the thread trail. They estimate the cost throughout Cabarrus County on the portions here to be about $240,000. They will cover $120,000 under this proposal. And then they have asked the different jurisdictions, Harrisburg, Concord, Kannapolis, and Cabarrus County, to also make contributions. So the request to us is for $47,000 as a contribution to that fundraising goal. I didn't know if Commissioner Morris wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think you did a good job on that, Jonathan. And this is, I think, another example where this cooperation between the various entities makes it a very accomplishable goal.
And if you wanted to see some of the examples of what that new signage is like, and a lot of it is both better identification, safety markers, tie-ins to other amenities around those trails. But the section on Irish Buffalo that Kannapolis recently completed was used as an example project. So you could go to that section of the thread trail and see the type of signage they're talking about. If this was something you were favorable towards, I've talked with Rodney Harris, and he has suggested that we did a budget amendment for this purpose come from your contingency funds that are budgeted annually each year.
Excellent. So that item is that included on our regular meeting agenda for a vote, or is that on our consent agenda?
I believe it'd be on your consent agenda for your regular meeting, and we would add that proper motion and the budget amendment.
Great. Thank you. Commissioners, questions for Jonathan? Or comments if you're in favor of this moving forward?
Yes, I'm fine.
Great.
Yeah, I'm good with it too, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a good thing for us to continue on with the thread drill, and that's a small portion to be asked, so I'm okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, then we will now move to item 5.3, and Jonathan will talk with us about interlocal wastewater capacity allocation agreement.
And this is an item that I believe Commissioner Shue may want to provide some input. And if you have technical questions, Mr. Cook has reviewed this agreement also. The Water and Sewer Authority Board has spent months, I mean literally months, talking about allocation. As you're aware, we have seen record-setting requests for sewer capacity with new development. As a result, the Water and Sewer Authority is undertaking a major expansion from 26.5 million gallons a day of treatment capacity to 30 million, and then immediately and really overlapping to 34 million gallons a day. And actually, I've already started the process to seek a permit to go beyond that when this construction project ends. But what has come out of that is, as capacity has dwindled, there needs to be a system by which the jurisdictions are able to allocate that capacity. And we wanted to make sure that that was a system that was fair to all groups. The Water and Sewer Authority Board asked that a sewer allocation committee be put together with representatives from each of the member jurisdictions of WASAC. Midland was also represented, although they are provided that sewer system and treatment from the city of Concord. They did have representatives there. And that group came back with a recommendation that allowed a base allocation for each jurisdiction out of fairness, that each one had an equal amount to begin with. And then the remaining available capacity is divided up by percentages, with the largest year and largest system, Concord, having the greatest percentage, followed by Kannapolis, Harrisburg, and Mount Pleasant. And of course, Midland is included with Concord in that. So the board continued to discuss that. There were some minor tweaks to it, but ultimately reached a decision to accept the recommendation of that sewer allocation committee. In order to put that in place, we've put together this interlocal wastewater capacity allocation agreement. It's being presented to each of the jurisdictions that are members of WASAC. And of course, the county is not a direct sewer provider, but we are a member of WASAC, so they are asking that this board consider this agreement and adopt it. It puts into place that allocation system so that as additional capacity is created, and there are a number of avenues by which we're trying to free up capacity or create additional capacity, not just construction, but some other ways of calculating available capacity that are being pursued. So as that capacity becomes available, this sets up a system by which the local jurisdictions can then allocate their share of that capacity. One of the things I'll point out is that will allow them to set policies. So if, for instance, in one of the jurisdictions, they felt that they should prioritize economic development for their capacity allocation, they would be able to do that by having this agreement in place and by having that capacity identified for them. So Commissioner Shue, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that or not.
No, I think you did an excellent job, Jonathan, summarizing the activities that we've been doing. It does help the municipalities, the member jurisdictions. It does help them sort of control their future or just a little bit because they know how much allocation they've got. And for instance, if they've got, hypothetically, they got 500,000 gallons of capacity, and here comes this big project like Aquamarine, and they need 400,000 gallons. Well, you know, it makes it a little bit harder for them, you know, because that's going to gobble up 80% of what they had. And so, I mean, it gives them a chance to sort of prioritize and direct their future in a little more controlled way, knowing how much they're going to have. And so I think it's one of the better things that we've been able to do. But we were forced to do this, though, because of the reducing capacity. That's an excellent presentation too, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had sent this this interlocal agreement out for you to look at if you had any questions. I did not receive anyone from any commissioners, but One of the reasons I did that is they are trying to fast track the adoption of this. I do believe if it waits for your regular meeting, we'll be fine because based on the calendar that other jurisdictions are using, but you do have the option if you wanted to consider it tonight. If you did, I would be happy to offer a motion on that, or offer a motion you could make on that.
Commissioners, what would be your pleasure on this? There's an awful lot of work that has gone into this process, and as Jonathan mentioned, he has provided the agreement to us in advance. I personally would feel comfortable in suspending the rules and going ahead and approving this tonight, just to make sure that we do not provide a roadblock or slow down the process if the board feels comfortable with that.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kiger and a second by Commissioner Hugh to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. And Jonathan, if you might provide us with the appropriate wording for that motion.
So the requested action that was included for your regular meeting, which we'll now include with this one, motion to allow the county manager to execute the interlocal wastewater capacity allocation agreement after review and revisions by the county attorney. We'll turn to Mr. Cook. He has reviewed it both as the county attorney and the Harrisburg attorney, and see if he had any other comments.
I don't. I think all the attorneys that have reviewed this agreement from all the municipalities have all found it to be in good order legally. So.
Okay. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Kiger to allow the county manager to execute the interlocal wastewater capacity allocation agreement after review and revisions by the county attorney. Do I hear a second?
Second motion.
Okay, second by Commissioner Hugh. Is there further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to all those other folks. I've been involved in some conversations. I know that others have as well, with some of our representatives in Raleigh, trying to get a better, as Jonathan mentioned, method of computing some of this capacity. So hopefully we will be successful in that regard. This is one of the symptoms of being the third fastest growing county in the state of North Carolina. So I appreciate all your efforts to keep us on track there. And so we move now to item 5.4, appropriation of supplemental links funding. And we're happy to have Sharon Schuneman with us to speak on that topic.
Good evening. Actually, this is Sharon Reese. I am a Sharon, but I'm going to be presenting.
Great, thank you. I thought Reese was a whole lot easier to pronounce than the other name. I wish you had told me.
We wanted to see your ability to pronounce Schuneman.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. In short, on September 17th of this year, the state DHS tasked the 100 counties via Dear County Director letter, providing us with instructions to provide a one-time unrestricted payment for young adults who had experienced foster care. All the eligibility required the youths that were at least 14 at the time they were in foster care and were currently aged 18 to 26. There was no requirement to assess the financial need or for the county to match these funds. So eligible youths 18 to 20 received $2,500 each, and young adults 21 to 26 received $5,000 each. I want to add that I had wanted our adolescent foster care supervisor to present, because it is truly a credit to that team and the rapport that they have with the young people, that they were able to identify 27 young people that we were able to let them know about the funds and have sent to them. Our initial allocation was $73,400, but thanks to collaborative efforts with our adult services program, we've had young adults who have gone over to that program who also were eligible. So we were able to increase our allocation to $87,500. We received $87,500 in Title 4B funds. Like I said, no county match was required. It was important that this occur because some of these youths were impacted by the pandemic and may not have received previous allocations from the federal government. So we've been able to receive feedback from these youths, and the vast majority of them will be using this money for transportation to get to and from jobs. We have several youths that are in school, and we also have youths that we have one that has a baby that she's also caring for, who is under our VPA program. And at this point, the breakdown is that we had 19 youths aged 18 to 20, 7 of which are currently actively involved with our agency under the voluntary placement agreement. And then we were able to identify 8 youths, 21 to 26 years old, that are working in the community. Some of them have families. I do want to make a special note that one young woman actually got her master's of social work and is currently interning at Mecklenburg County Department of Human Services. So again, these funds are being used to young people to help other young people in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. That is a great report. Does anybody have questions for Sharon? Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you bringing that report to us.
Thank you.
Next up is item 5.5, Low Income Energy Assistance Program Funds, and we're happy to have Laura Light to talk about that item.
Good evening. So I will also keep this brief. You guys have had a long night so far. So I am bringing forth tonight a request for a budget amendment for our Low Income Energy Assistance Program, which we also is also known as LEAP. So DHS has been approved to receive $667,099 for the LEAP program, which will be effective December 1st. Of this year, 2021. And this is going to be an increase from our original allocation of $557,053. We're requesting a supplemental increase to the LEAP revenue and expense budget line items to match the approved funding authorization plan. This funding is 100% federal dollars and county shares not required. I'm just bringing forth that budget amendment to you guys tonight.
Any questions for Laura? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, 5.6, SHIP grant budget amendment, and we're glad to have Anthony Hodges to talk about that one.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me come and speak with you this afternoon. Department of Human Services receives a grant from the state for our Senior Health Insurance Information Program, or SHIP. It's a program where we assist individuals that are on Medicare or Medicare eligible, either sign up for Medicare if they're new to Medicare, one of the major things that we do each year is through the help individuals during Medicare Part D open enrollment, which is for the drug plans. That's actually open enrollment going on right now. And we received this grant through the state to help with outreach and doing these programs through our staff and through community volunteers. And although the grant runs July 1 through June 30th, we just received in this last month the actual amount of the grant, which is $8,357. So that's why we're requesting a budget amendment to correct the budget to the actual amounts for the appropriation of the expenditures. And there is no county match for this grant.
Right. Any questions for Anthony, commissioners? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item 5.7, and I think actually the next 3 or 4 items on our agenda are some that we may want to vote on tonight. I guess this would be a question for Mr. Cook. Can we do one motion to suspend the rules on all 4 of those items, or do we need to do them one by one by one?
No, you can do one motion to suspend the rules, so long as you name the ones that you're suspending it for. So make sure they're all named and you one motion.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so we will move to item 5.7. And I think Mr. Billifer will be back with us for that item.
Good evening again. Presenting tonight on the Mount Pleasant Library Senior Center design firm selection for initial design services. Cabarrus County staff received 11 submissions from architectural firms for the initial design services for the new Mount Pleasant Library and Senior Center on August 17, 2021. The initial design services solicited were programming, schematic, and cost estimating. The selection committee selected CPL Architecture, Engineering, and Planning for the project after submittal packages were reviewed and the finalists were interviewed. I am looking for a motion to suspend the rules for the next several ones. So I don't know if you want to go through each one.
I think we'll probably do those individually, and you jumped one ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
my apologies.
5.8 and skipped over 5.7, which was the temporary construction easement at Vietnam Veterans Park.
Okay, I apologize. Let's go back and let me get the temporary easement for you. So that's my fault. To give you some background, Meritage Homes, who is, I believe they are the developer of, and I'm not sure that I'm saying it right, but I think it's Childers Park. It's 92 family homes and 169 townhomes. It is right next door to Vietnam Veterans Park. They approached the county via City of Kannapolis about using our park to gain access to the sewer easement. And it was the easiest way and also avoided the Army Corps of Engineers, which I'm sure made us very attractive to them. So Meritage Homes is requesting a temporary construction easement at Vietnam Veterans Park for the staging, access, and installation of a sewer tie-in on the sewer easement that is adjacent to the park for the Childers Park development. County staff and county legal have worked with the county and Meritage Homes legal counsel on the easement. And obviously staff will provide details on the easement, the operational impacts, logistics, and implications. And the attachment of the easement, actually, the last page of the attachment probably is the best example of what the operational impacts are. That's right. That's correct. Thank you, Lauren. So that kind of shows, those orange lines show where the snow fencing will go around and what amenities will be impacted negatively to this going in. And really the staff, both ALP staff, IAM staff, met with Meritage Homes and their contractor, and we could have minimized the area that we impacted, but I was a little concerned about the amount of trucks on a daily basis that we're going to be traveling down there. And knowing some of our walkers might not heed a sign that says don't enter here, I really felt it was better that we snow fence all of that off. So we are losing a considerable amount of trail as well as some of the disc golf course, a couple holes with this easement, and that's obviously why we've asked for $7,000 for the easement as part of the payment. And Alps and I am plan on using that funding to plant a lot more trees in that park, since we will be losing several trees that are not, they don't belong to the county, they are in the easement, but I can tell you when they make that sewer connection, they will clear cut all of that. So we felt we'd take it upon ourselves to kind of mitigate that and plant some more trees in the park with this.
Kyle, what's snow fencing?
I apologize. It is a orange plastic fence that almost looks like you can barely even get your hand through it. So we weren't comfortable with just caution tape and cones and barrels. You would physically have to throw your leg over this to get over it. So it's taller than black silt fencing, but it's got some more pull on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions for Kyle, commissioners? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and hear the next two items and then come back and suspend the rules and take action on these that are requested. So the next item is 5.9, and this is Kyle again about the Mount Pleasant Park.
Yes, so this is for the actual park amenity of it. County staff did decide to divide up the design portions of the park and then the senior center / library. So they're two different firms. So what I'll be discussing right now is the actual park. So Cabarrus County staff received 8 submissions from engineering firms for the initial design services for the new Mount Pleasant Library Park amenity on August 17th, 2021. The initial design services solicited were programming, schematic, and cost estimating. The selection committee selected Alfred Benish and Company for the project after submittal package reviews and finalist interviews.
Okay, any questions on that item, commissioners?
So just to clear up, 2 different design companies for different portions of it that will have to work together. And obviously we're wanting to get started as quickly as possible so that we can generate those cost estimates, and that will aid Mr. Harris and Wendy and kind of going out for the debt and the capital funding.
Right. Thank you, sir. Okay, and then we move now to item 5.10. And this is from Infrastructure and Asset Management, Town of Midland, temporary construction easement at Rob Wallace Park for Veterans Memorial. And this is one that we had discussed at our regular meeting last month and tabled it to this meeting. So I think, does anybody have any additional questions on that item? If not, then I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules to take action on items, and we'll do the motions individually, but on items 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, and 5.10.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we suspend our rules.
Okay, that was a motion by Commissioner Shue, a second by Commissioner Honeycutt. To suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And that motion passes. And then we will go back to item 5.7. And I would entertain a motion to approve the temporary construction easement agreement between Cabarrus County and Meritage Homes for the access to sewer line from Vietnam Veterans Park, and authorize the county manager to execute the temporary construction easement agreement on behalf of Cabarrus County, subject to review or revisions by the county attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Shue, second by Commissioner Strang. Is there discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. And we move to item 5.8. And I would entertain a motion to approve the initial design firm selection and authorize the county manager to execute the contract between Cabarrus County and CPL Architecture, Engineering, Planning, subject to revision by the county attorney, and adopt the associated budget amendment and project ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Commissioner Honeycutt, a second by Commissioner Shue. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And that motion passes unanimously. And we move to item 5.9. I would entertain a motion to approve the initial design firm selection and authorize the county manager to execute the contract between Cabarrus County and Alfred Benish and Company, subject to revision by the county attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Commissioner Strang, a second by Commissioner Kiger. Is there discussion on that item? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And that motion passes. And we move to item 5.10. And I would, at this time, entertain a motion to approve the temporary construction easement for the town of Midland and authorize the county manager to execute the easement documents on behalf of Cabarrus County, subject to review or revisions by the county attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Commissioner Strang, a second by Commissioner Kiger. Is there discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and we will move now to item 5.11 from Planning and Development, Budget Amendment for Duke Rebate Program Funds, and we are happy to have Kelly Sifford with us for that item.
Thank you. So this is basically what we've been doing every month. The rebate funds that we get back are required to be rolled back into our program. So this is taking the $3,728.49 that we received last month and putting it into an expense account so that it can be expended.
Okay, commissioners, questions for Kelly? All right, then we move to item 5.12, and it's Kelly again. Soil and Water Conservation District Board applications for farmland preservation grants. Kelly,
Yep. Daniel McClellan is actually with us, and he's going to present that item for you. Thank you.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the county commissioners for their continued support of the conservation easements on the working lands of Cabarrus County. And since the Soil and Water Conservation District has been applying for these grants, we've been able to apply conservation easements to about 360 acres of working land. These are all prime and state important farmland soils of the county, so they're very productive soils for agriculture. By conserving these productive soils, the county helps ensure that open spaces continue to be working agricultural lands. And at our October Soil and Water District Board meeting, the district board requested that the county commissioners support the district's request to apply for both the state North Carolina Department of Agriculture Agriculture Development Trust Fund grants, and also the United States Department of agricultural land easement grants to conserve future working lands. So I think this has really benefited the farmers in Cabarrus County with these conservation easements, that they're able to continue providing open space and these working lands for the county.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Any questions, commissioners? Well, I think this is an excellent program, and especially, we just had the conversation earlier about the rapid development that we're experiencing here in Cabarrus County, and talking about water and sewer capacity, and so to have this program that operates hand in hand with all the development to help preserve some of our agricultural space and our open space is truly a huge asset for our county. So we appreciate you and your board and the efforts that they make, and I think to pursue these applications is certainly to the benefit of everyone in the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to comment too, Mr. Chairman, on that, since I've been on the as a liaison to the board, to the soil and water. I tell you, you got a bunch of faithful, dedicated public servants on that soil and water board, with everyone that takes part. Daniel, you guys are dedicated to what you're doing, and you are a valuable resource to the farmers and to the landowners around that wants to involve themselves with conservation easements and different things that that soil and water does. And so I'm real proud to be a part of that. And I thank you, Daniel, for all that you and Tammy and Vicky and Tommy, everybody, you just do an excellent job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move now to item 5.13 from the Sheriff's Office, transfer of surplus vehicle. And we are happy to have Chief Deputy James Bailey with us to talk about that item.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. We were approached about a year, maybe 18 months ago, a need for the Public Safety Academy at Concord High School to have a replacement vehicle. At the time, we had some delays in Ford getting the vehicles to us, so it took some time for us to get those cars that were being taken offline, to get them basically decommissioned. Our fleet manager has identified one particular car that he thinks will be of use for the Academy. It's asset number 8371, a 2015 Ford Taurus. It has 132,000 miles. It is again being decommissioned, and the Public Safety Academy has asked that we transfer that car over to them for their Public Safety Academy at Concord High School.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Bailey. Any questions, Commissioners? Okay, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to the approval of our regular meeting agenda. And as part of that approval, I did want to mention that this may be an appropriate time for the board to have a discussion about how we would like to continue going forward, particularly with our regular meeting this month and subsequent meetings. If we want to continue on this virtual format, which has worked out very well for us, but it's not the same as our in-person meetings. But I wanted to just kind of get the sentiments of the board as to how you feel about that. If you feel we're ready to go back to in-person meetings, or if you would prefer to continue virtually for another month or two. And so wanted to just have some casual conversation about that before we approve our agenda for the regular meeting.
Well, Mr. Chairman, since I'm probably the most vulnerable, and even though I've had all of the vaccines and the booster, basically I feel fairly comfortable meeting face to face, especially in open air areas. And, but when it comes to our face to face, I think that we can go back to in person. I think we still need to try to socially distance ourselves as best we can, because COVID is not dead. COVID is still alive. And although the numbers are trending in a better way than they were, and we want them to continue to go that way and not be a victim of that virus. So I'm okay either way. And but I wanted to speak first since I'm probably the most vulnerable. Not that I am, but more than likely I am. So anyway, that's my input.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
I would have to agree with Lynn that going back in person would probably be a good idea, since our numbers are going down, and as long as Lynn is comfortable with that, I am as well.
Thank you.
Fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine doing that. I would defer really to Lynn and Diane both, and as long as they're okay, then that's fine with me.
Okay, well, based on what I've heard here in this conversation, then I think that we will plan on November the 15th to meet in regular meeting chambers, as we have done previously, which will will open up the ability for those people that want to participate in public comments and things of that nature will be able to do so. So thank you for that discussion. And so next, as in the approval of our regular meeting agenda, and I might need some help with this because we've taken care of several items. I was looking through to see if there were items that we needed to delete, and I think they've all been taken care of. Does anybody see otherwise?
That's
Okay,
good.
excellent. So in light of that, I would entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting agenda as presented.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think that was a motion by Commissioner Honeycutt, and we'll take Commissioner Shue as a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. And that motion passes. We do have need of a closed session tonight. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss matters related to pending litigation and economic development as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 A3 and 4.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll give that the motion by Commissioner Shue, and the second was Commissioner Kiger?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And so we are now in closed session. So we want to express our appreciation to everybody that participated in the meeting and those that may be watching on television. It's been a rather lengthy one. So we appreciate your patience in staying with us. And so we will now, commissioners, you'll need to leave this meeting and log back in on the other link. Thank you.
Is doing in Cabarrus County. Could you sort of bring